Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Greg Parker. I'm one of the Pride co-chairs for Pride at Gap Inc. This is our kickoff event for Pride Month. We have a few coming up, so I'm really, really excited to have this first one today. Happy Pride. Happy Pride, everyone. I am not the biggest public speaker to sit on a stool, so bear with me if I'm a little shaky or a little nervous, but I'm really excited. I'm so excited to have this event with you all today. And for all those on Zoom as well, we're here live at 55 Thomas. The cafe they wanted to surprise and delight me with rainbow water and rainbow cookies. So there's some sugar cookies with rainbow sprinkles and really delicious flavored water. Help yourselves. But really, we just want to kick off some things this month. We know that there has been so much in the news that it can feel a little just overwhelming at times. With Target and Bud Light, and now they're coming after Kohl's and Walmart and other apparel retailers, and we're in apparel. And it can feel like just a lot with that alone. And then on top of that, we've had a record year for anti-LGBTQ laws that are at state legislators. And I had to write it down. I made sure I typed it up and had it down because I was going to forget the number, because it's a staggering, crazy number. Over 540 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced at state legislators this year alone, which is a record. And 220 of them specifically target non-binary and transgender people, which is also a record. And that's just, it's a lot. It's a lot to sit in. And what we recognize too as Pride at Gap is that so many of our members, we're a mighty group. We have like 1,000 members, and so many are in the field in these states where all these anti-LGBTQ laws are being proposed. And I just want to address, like, for our group, for our members, but also for the allies here in the room, that can feel very heavy and very, very dark, and to sit in that for a moment. But I don't want to sit in that very long, because whenever it does feel that way, we can also be the light. And that's what we've really done, I think, as a community forever, is we keep going. We keep the conversation going. We keep moving. We don't get down, because you can get down. You can really feel it. So that's kind of what we're doing. That's our theme, really, for the whole month with Pride Month, with Pride at Gap, is to educate and celebrate. So we have a couple events coming up this month. One will be a book club, which I'm probably going to get the date wrong, but I think it's June 13th. But check your calendars, check the newsletter. And you can bring any book you want. Bring a book that you just love, that you want to celebrate and talk about. That just could be anything. I like David Sedaris books. They're hilarious. Bring a book, talk about it. But then we're also going to have an EBG-led event at the end of this month that's going to be really, really fun. We're going to talk about some amazing things. There might be some special guest appearances. It's going to be educational and celebrational for sure. But with today, so I want to kick off. Today you'll hear about our panelists. So I'm going to introduce these fabulous people that are with me here today. But we're going to talk about queer education and how that also connects with queer film celebration. And then we're going to hopefully have a big, robust time for you guys to all have questions and answers. I'm going to target you right away. Yes. Use that close. So we just, and for everybody on Zoom as well. So we have paused the chat function, because we want everyone to really just listen to our speakers today and really participate in that. But then please make sure you're putting your questions in the Q&A. We have somebody who's looking at them throughout as we're talking. So if you have questions as we're saying stuff, throw them in that Q&A right now, and we will definitely address that at the end. But I would like to pass it off to our panelists so you all get to meet them.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Burt. I'm the founder of Big Red Studios, a queer-owned film production company. I'm the producer of Family Affair, a short film that we're going to be talking about today, along with these two fabulous filmmakers, Ernie and Julio. You can. My pronouns are he, him, by the way.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ernest Anemone, he, they. I am the writer-producer of a short queer comedy, Family Affair, which Kyle just talked about. And I am also an attorney, an actor, and a professional facilitator. And I work with companies around the world helping people have better conversations. And that was a big point of inspiration for wanting to be a filmmaker to begin with, and particularly with this film.
Hi everyone, my name is Julio Dowensing. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the director for Family Affair.
An actor in that, right?
And actor.
Yeah, he's in it too.
We kind of had a foursome, but we're glad that we did.
I watched it last night and I was like, oh, he's there, he's in it.
So we're all independent filmmakers who have been working in and out of the industry in various capacities as queer and gay men. And we want to talk about how we can lead our industries and lead our friend groups and our communities by example. So we just want to talk about some queer terminology that expands not just in the queer world, but to any other like historically marginalized group. We want to make sure we're speaking the same language. In those terms, we'll talk about films that we like that are really doing and showing and not telling us the right way to represent queer individuals. So to start us off with the queer education, the 4 terms we're going to talk about are inclusivity, intersectionality, tokenism, and representation. These are big words.
And we promise this isn't going to be a lecture.
We promise you. We want this to be conversation.
Big words. Those are big words.
They're big words, and it's there's a lot of not necessarily confusion around them, but people get nervous to talk about them. So we want this to be a safe place where it feels more conversational. So to start us off with inclusivity, this is, I think, the most basic term that we need to understand is the queer community. It's everyone is involved. Most basically, the definition of inclusivity is the creation of equal opportunities as well as providing of equal resources to individuals who have been historically marginalized or left out. Especially minority groups, physical disabilities, and those with intellectual disabilities. The key thing about this term is not just the opportunities, but also the resources. We're not talking about just financial resources, but also coaching resources, mentorship, education, support for other areas of their life that might be impacting how they show up in the world. So very simply put, it's not just having a seat at the table, it's having a say in the menu.
I love that phrase. I love that quote.
It's because one, we love food.
Yeah, I mean, if you love food, right there, you're in. But you can get that.
But also, we've all been to a party where like we don't want anything else at the table. Like so, like I think there's something really powerful in that analogy. Julio was telling me about one of his favorite films, Moonlight, and how it like represents some inclusivity for him.
Yeah, I mean, when Moonlight came about, I was in film school. I was about to direct my first film, and it was the first time I've ever seen myself represented on TV. I mean, on the big screen, really. And I grew up in Jamaica, so like being queer or other was not really something I saw as a possibility. And when I came to America, it kind of like opened my eyes, and I would like, watch films when I get the chance and see like queer representation, but I really wasn't able to fully like grasp like the core of like who I was until that film came about, which was like 2017. So it was a while, and it really helped my coming out process. And it was just such a nuanced take on Black queer men, and really was helped showcase a new branch of queer identities to mainstream media. And for that, it was really beautiful to watch and to see how it was celebrated, and it really opened up the doors and showed big studios that these films can, be profitable, be touching, be inspiring to people. And yeah, it was something that was like, okay, wow, I can do this too. It was like really the push I needed as a filmmaker to be like, okay, like I could tell my story and tell stories like these and help elevate people who want to create stories like this.
And one of the reasons that we all love each other, and I think that we work really well together, is because we have all been traumatized by the film industry in one way or the other. But we're not going to talk about that today.
No, I was going to say,
we recognize that inclusivity is not just important in the stories that we tell, but also in how we tell those stories. So from the beginning, we were very clear that we wanted to have diversity, equity, and inclusion in our cast, in our crew, all the way from the ground up.
every step of the way, we were incorporating different members of our community, different colors of our community, shapes and sizes to fuel the story, to inform the story, to make sure that we are telling it authentically, but in a way that feels endemic to our community. It's not just about showing up and looking the part, it's about sounding like the part and feeling like the experiences that we've had.
And I can say that as a writer, it's very tempting to want to force your vision of a story onto something, but something much better happens when you let your story become a platform for other people's genius. Because I was able to see the story from so many different ways because of the people I was working with.
It challenges you to do better work, to have different perspectives around you. And at the end of the day, we're trying to make some of the best work of our lives. And so in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're bringing our folks along with us. Moving on to, intersectionality. Julio touched about this briefly, but intersectionality is this idea that everyone occupies different identities and social circles at any given moment in their life. And those identities have a positive or a negative impact. They afford you certain disadvantages or advantages, depending on where, how those intersections operate in the world. Kimberly Crenshaw came up with this term in 1989, and it's an excellent tool for self-awareness, understanding your own intersections and how you show up in the world, where you identify with, and how that informs your decision-making, and also how you judge other people. And not judgment in like a heavy way, just in like the casual passing judgments we make of every person. Many films do this very well, especially in like recent years. Tangerine is an excellent one that shows different intersections of the trans identity. It's directed by the Duplass brothers, who also have an excellent show on HBO right now called Somebody Somewhere, which is
show.
The most queer intersection show right now, in my opinion, because it focuses on queer individuals in a rural town and how they relate with religion and also like traditionally heteronormative like pressures from their community. It's not a gay show though. It's just them living their lives. So I'm not sure.
They're just people.
Yeah,
like,
they're just
it's
people.
it's a normal, like, there's nothing, it's not like a, hey, this character is this and this character is that, and it whacks you over the head with it. It's just, no, these are just people.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. I love that show.
Ernie has a really great analogy around icebergs. I don't know if anybody in the room or has, on the Zoom, have thought about their intersections or how they show up in the world, but Ernie, take it away.
Sure, yeah, okay. So who here would like to learn how to get out of any argument, end any argument? Okay, it's actually really simple. You have to stop trying to win. That's why we argue. We get dragged into the past. What happens is the most visible parts of us tend to be our positions, and those positions can be very divisive. These two mountains or these two icebergs that we see. But when we go under the surface of our positions, there we go, we get to the interests that give rise to those positions and the needs that give rise to those interests. And then we move closer to an area where we can actually collaborate, which is our shared interests. So how do we go under the surface? We just have to be curious. Instead of telling, we have to start asking, right? So we're never going to move those two icebergs together. It's never going to happen. But what we can do is become curious enough to get down to the bottom where our shared interests lie. And that just comes from asking really good questions, really broad-based questions about what motivates people. And we need to have those conversations if we want to move forward.
And the best way to do that is starting with yourself, understanding how you show up in the world and what that means to you, whether you identify with the hometown that you come from, or a particular religion, or if you're from a particular socioeconomic status. You know, those are ways that inform how you show up in the world and how you make your decisions. So understanding those interests that inform how you show up will help you find out how you can find the shared interest in someone else. What is motivating their decision and their position, and see how they intersect.
And I would just say that another important point for all of you is that we all tend to gravitate towards the spaces where we feel most comfortable, right? Maybe we tend to gravitate towards the spaces where people look like us and sound like us, right? But we also have to ask ourselves the question when we're there, are there any other parts of our identity that we're giving up to be in that space? Because if so, then that's not really an inclusive space.
Yeah.
So I have to jump in and just say, you play the teacher in Family Affair.
Yeah.
And I feel
He
very
wasn't
much.
as bright as this.
No, he was not, actually, that's true. But when I saw the slide earlier, obviously we've talked about this stuff, but I was like, because being in product development, very much we're at the position period, but we got to go underneath the water and be like, okay, so what are your needs design? What are your needs merchant and like work? So for me, I was like, okay, this will help me every day for the rest of my life.
Everyone's fueled.
I will be leading intersectionality forever.
Everyone's fueled by something. We're all motivated by something. So getting to the core root of what someone's motivations are is where we can find that shared interest and shared understanding. Just respecting where someone's coming from and why they're working for what they're working towards.
When I went into trying to figure out where I intersected in all my identities, it really helped inform the kind of work that I did, the kind of projects I choose to support, and the people I choose to work with. And I think just getting a good grasp on that was really important to me as a filmmaker.
So if you haven't taken a moment to look at your own intersections or think about it, we just to take a moment, think about what matters to you and how you show up in the world, and then help see those differences as benefits of our community. Because one of the benefits of the queer community is that we intersect with almost, if not every single other intersection. So we as the queer community have an incredible opportunity and sometimes a burden to lead by example. Like, we are the light when things are tough. And so I think we can show how to accept people more naturally, and not by shaming people or telling them this is how you do, you're doing it wrong, but rather as Schitt's Creek did, it's just showing you people how to live right, how to just go about the world with these acceptances and without these prejudices.
Yeah, and if you're not at the point yet where you understand that gay liberation intersects with Black Lives Matter, intersects with Black trans lives matter, if you don't see where they come together to speak to liberation for everybody, I mean, the idea that all of us should have the ability to define our own concept of existence, have control over our own bodies, then you're just at the beginning. And you have to keep asking those really good questions till you find those intersections. And then once we're all there, hey, we're golden, right? Yeah. It's going to take a while, though.
No one oppression is more significant than another. If one person or one group is oppressed, then we are all oppressed, especially as queer individuals.
It's a big thing we have equality and belonging groups here at Gap Inc. And so we have veterans, we have women, we have parents, we have Black, we have Ola, we have Pride. I'm missing one maybe. We're all intersect because you could be part of Pride, but you could also be a parent, you could be part of women, you could also be a veteran. It's just, it's so much. So we have all this shared accountability within that, and that's what I love about this whole section.
Can I pay Gap a compliment?
Sure.
Because,
Yes,
as somebody who works
please.
with a lot of companies, I mean, what Gap, I think, is getting right is that they understand that inclusion comes first, right? Because there's a lot of companies that prioritize diversity in recruiting, and then they have really poor retention rates. Why? Because once people get there, they don't have that seat at the table, and they leave, and they should.
Or they don't have the support or the resources that they need. They're brought into an environment in which they will not survive because it's not meant for them, which goes back to the fundamental of inclusivity, which is it a safe environment? Do you have equal opportunities and equal resources? If you don't have the equal resources, it's a responsibility organization to bring those resources and help those individuals succeed. And when I say organization, I want to use that as most broadly as I can. And actually, I want to speak specifically to white gay men. We do not have inclusive environments. We are very exclusionary, and that is shameful. And so until we allow more genders into our spaces and create safety for them, we still have work to do. So moving on to one more heavy term, tokenism. We'll say this real lightly because I think tokenism is like one side of the coin where representation is another side of the coin. So tokenism is very broadly the use of a historically marginalized individual as an effort to show diversity or prove out that they are inclusive. So it's essentially doing the work. It's not doing the work and getting all the credit. It is for getting a group in your research, your focus groups, and then like making assumptions about what they would think. It is forgetting to include certain models in a product shoot like that, and we just throw in an individual last minute because shit, we forgot. Like, that's tokenism. It's bad. We don't want to do this. We'll talk a little bit more about tokenism with Family Affair because there's two real strong points that we went against with our film. But moving on to, or for tokenism, yeah, don't just check a box. We're not badges. This isn't like trying to get all of, we hit all the points, therefore we're inclusive, therefore we're representative. That's the wrong approach. So again, inclusivity is the fundamental of all of this. So on the flip side of tokenism is actual representation. That's what Julio felt when he saw Moonlight. It's what Ernie felt when he sees Queer as Folk. It's not what Greg felt when he sees Philadelphia.
I die at the end. Like, it's just, that was my first film that I got to see myself on screen. So that's where we were talking about our trauma in film before. I was like, well, that was my first one, so.
And before we go out and praising Queer as
Yeah.
Folk, which for any of you who know the show, had a major diversity problem, very problematic
Yeah.
in that way.
Yeah.
That was the first time, and Greg and I were talking that, I mean, gay people, queer people were just a punchline in film and television before that, or we were living some tragic life, which was just our burden to bear. And then for the first time with Queer as Folk, I was able to see all of these different queer men leading very different lives. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, there can be multitudes to me too. I don't have to worry about being one thing to fit in one place. And that's the type of representation that we're going for here and trying to evolve.
I would say also a lot of the characters that I've seen in film and television were also like side characters. You really wanted more of those characters. At least I did. And I just, you just didn't get it. So it was just left me wanting more, which made me want to write my own and create stories that I'm like, you know what, you're not going to show it to me. I'm going to create it. So that's kind of the attitude that we have.
For me, the tokenism and the representation are such big conversation points for me. Like when you even see a show like for the allies and the ladies in the room, and just like that, the Sex and the City sequel show, yeah. Right. Like the Che character, is that a positive? Because the first Sex and the City shows never had any characters like that. So is it like a good move on, or do you feel like it's a side character and it's tokenism? Like it's that balance, right? And it's a hard balance to strike, but it also, there's shows that are doing it so well and so organically, like Somebody Somewhere, where it's just everybody is just who they are, and it's not a whack on the head. And they're not side character kind of things, It just, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a delicate line to balance for sure. And I think the thing that messes us up in this practice is that we are afraid of failure. We're afraid of doing it wrong. We're afraid of messing up, and we're afraid of saying sorry. It is okay to mess up, and it is okay to say, I'm sorry, I didn't do that right. And it's not just about the apology, it's also about the accountability and the change behavior afterwards. What are you doing to slow down so that you are not misgendering one of your colleagues or one of your friends? What are you doing to slow down, to just take a moment to breathe and know that you're okay? So representation is the ability to see yourself and speak for yourself, and for individuals like you, as well as seeing those individuals succeed. It's like with Philadelphia, when we saw queer people dying, like that is not a hopeful future. Yes, everyone dies, but also like it was a very traumatic way and in a very burdensome way. Even with like Brokeback Mountain, which replaced Philadelphia in a way for white gay men, there was was an astounding leap forward to see such joy and such vulnerability. But then also, major diversity issue. Also, like many of our queer individuals can't see themselves in that story. So we are still trying to get new stories out there. So we're going to have stories that make Moonlight feel like Brokeback Mountain at some point is going to be outdated and feel like that doesn't speak to certain individuals. Because again, we are an ever evolving and ever growing and inclusive community. We intersect with every other minority group out there. And if you are part of the queer community and you don't intersect with any other minority groups, you are receiving positive advantages in this world. It is your responsibility to use your voice and use your privilege to bring our other kin into the conversation.
Yeah, look at the table and think about what are the voices that aren't there. Check your blind spots.
And if you can't check your blind spots, get a trusted friend to check them for you. Because we all need that one person to like give it to you real. It could be someone at work, it could be someone at home. For me, it's someone sitting in the audience right now, which I'm really excited about. So, it's not about demonizing yourself or policing other people. It's about self-awareness and understanding that as my lived human experience, I can relate to someone else and their lived experience. So that's like our little preachy moment.
That was the education, right?
That was the
Do we get to
education
go into
part.
the
I feel like
celebration?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So
Michelle, yeah.
we can talk about queer celebration, queer film like ad nauseum. We could for days. Yeah. We'll send out all of our.
We're not going to do that.
We're not. We'll send out a list of all of our recommendations afterwards. But there have been so many impressive films in the last year, 2 years alone that have done wonders for queer representation. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a fantastic film that weaves lesbian and queer identities in so organically. It felt like my family has more tools and more words to have a conversation with me.
And they were badass.
And they were
Can we say that?
badass. If you haven't watched that movie, it is my #1 favorite film.
And in terms of comedy, I don't want to hear this nonsense of you can't tell a joke anymore. Okay? You can tell a joke. First of all, nobody makes fun of the queer community like the queer community. All right? It's a scorched earth campaign when we tell jokes about ourselves. Right? Isn't that true?
That's true.
Yeah. But you just can't tell crappy jokes anymore. Right? Well, actually, you can still tell them. It's just that people aren't going to listen to them or come to your shows. It's the difference between, are you putting somebody on the inside of the joke, are you bringing an audience in, or are you making them the butt of a joke? Yeah. When I went to college, and I'm going to date myself now, those early 2000 comedies, right? The F slur was just the punchline. It was just the low-hanging fruit to a stupid and silly joke. And I didn't even question it.
That's why I think so many people love Schitt's Creek, right? Because it's funny, but there's such a sweetness and joy to it too, and it's organic, and no one's the butt of a joke,
The conversations are inherently funny because we're watching humans human. We're not watching a trope live up to a stereotype that many of us have lived day in, day out, and don't get a break from. We don't need to see that played out on screen.
We're really busy trying to destroy traditional marriage, so we don't got time for this.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we don't really need to over-explain characters who are, have various queer identities. It's just like, they're people, they're humans, and they live really various similar lifestyles that everyone could relate to and grasp some sort of, foundation from, where it's like you could see yourself in these characters if you give the chance. It's just support and show love to a lot of those communities, shows, films, books. Yeah.
A professor of mine once said that people aren't problems, they're facts. And that really stuck with me my entire life. Because we spend a lot of time looking at people thinking that they're a problem to be solved, when really they're just a fact for us to confront and deal with.
The only problem we need to solve is how we communicate with each other. Accept the other person as the fact as opposed to someone's identity as the fact. Don't let your prejudgments inform someone else's identity. Approach with curiosity.
Can we celebrate your film?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like we broke our promise not to lecture. I'm sorry.
I mean, you are the teacher in this film, so totally makes sense. Yeah,
So
yeah.
Family Affair, Ernie wrote the script, and when I first saw the script, I laughed my ass off, actually, and I'm not being gratuitous. It was funny on the page, and so seeing the actors bring it to life has been such a joy and an honor. It's a short queer comedy about secrets. That's the film. We follow Tanner, a high school senior, who has a secret from his mother, and we, as the viewer, get to start wondering what is the secret, and we start filling in. So for our queer individuals in the room, when you watch this film is for you. It is, we did not talk about any of the things that normally go into this film. For the main, or go into queer cinema, and for the allies who see this, we want to challenge your prejudices. We want you to not focus on the identities of the characters. We want you to focus on the plot.
And whatever you assume is going on, you're wrong. And also, I'm going to just pay a compliment to Julio, who deserves all of the compliments. I'm very good at sarcasm, but I'm so happy that Julio came onto this project because he was able to give the audience a relationship with these characters and bring a sweetness to the story that was really wonderful, and I think it's what people are responding to.
Yeah, I was saying it does have that sweetness. It reminded me a lot of Heartstopper, the way the story is told. I don't know if anyone's watched Heartstopper on Netflix. It's amazing. Yeah, season 2 can't come soon enough, in my opinion. It's just a very, very sweet show, and it's something I feel like people can watch with their younger children. It crosses over, in such a great way.
In a way, I mean, I watched that show right before we filmed this, so shows like that really does inspire me, and you never know who you're inspiring with the projects that you create, and part of that did leave with me. So in a way, like a lot of these characters do, embody a lot of the shows and stuff that I love. So,
Can we watch a clip?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the clip you'll see here is our lead character, Tanner, having a conversation with his best friend, Emily.
Look, this thing you're doing, it's not my cup of tea, but who am I to judge?
It's not like it makes sense to me either. Just feels good, And it's not like we're hurting anybody, so I don't give a shit what anyone else thinks. I don't give a shit.
Well, we'll see if that changes when you get busted by Big Bill. Big Bill.
Big Bill.
Big Bill.
Eat your burger.
Those two are some of the most lovely people in the world, by the way.
They became great friends on set. Our lead actor, Bear D'Angelo, and Morgan, who plays Emily, they became best friends really quickly on set. But more importantly, everyone saw this script as a sort of celebration of the joy of the mundane, the pleasures you get of just going to the grocery store or like running through the park and getting home safely and having a fine time. Maybe someone cute stopped you, paid you a compliment. Like, it's that joy of everyday life that we don't often see.
Just two friends sitting in a car laughing. That's what I loved about that. Just could be anybody.
Yeah.
No pronouns, no whatever. Like just two friends. It was so sweet and organic.
Navigating how to tell people or how to not tell people and getting stuck in the web of lies that Tanner created.
Yeah, there is some intrigue. I've watched it. No spoilers. I won't say anything, but it keeps you guessing.
Okay, I will say I did really enjoy that scene. Being on set with like all these actors, they're so talented and they bring such life to the characters that it's just very surreal to like read a script and then like have the characters literally come off the page and into real life. I think that's one of my favorite parts. And then like coaching them, they were just so much fun. It was just like really a breath of fresh air, and it just made for a really good time on set, and that reflected obviously in that scene, which was a lot of fun.
I think this is the reason we love filmmaking, is because at the end of the day, a film becomes more than the sum of its parts. It's a really laborious process with a lot of stress and anxiety a lot of preparation, and despite all of that, things go wrong. So you really need to find people that you're comfortable working through all those issues with.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad that we had the team that we did, because it really did make the film more than the sum of its parts.
We have another clip to share, but we wanted to talk a little bit about queer tokenization and tokenism. So there's a bunch of queer stereotypes in film. I just picked a few to talk about today. First and foremost is trauma. We all know about trauma. We've all been through some sort of traumatic event, and if you haven't, God bless you, thank goodness, show us the way. But also transition and coming out. We all know this story. We all understand that there are changes, but also it's not exclusively to the queer individuals. So everyone comes out every single day in how they choose to share their identities. So it's not unique to us. And also it forces people to come out or puts a priority on coming out. And in some situations, coming out is not a requirement of the queer community. Being out is not a mandatory to be part of us.
If at a bare minimum, a queer space is a radically inclusive space. It has to be.
You know, some of these others, such as like sissies or, you know, cross-dressing is equal to transgender. Like, these are not true things. These are tropes that we are avoiding. Killed or be killed is one of my favorites around bi erasure, because most bi characters are either the person who is killed or the person who is doing the killing. Especially, like, think of, there's several. But with the script for Family Affair, we wanted to cast a non-binary actor to play this role so that we can have some gender exploration as we evolve the story into a series and turn it into a Heartstopper type show. And
to challenge the audience to not conflate gender identity with gender expression.
If you like the movie, it's becoming a series. You heard it here.
You heard it here first, but we will only make it a series.
Yes, as soon as the writer's strike is over, as soon as the American Motion Picture and Television Association decides to pay their writers a fair and living wage.
Correct. They are not paying their writers appropriately. They have not changed the fees in which writers have paid since streaming has existed. So all of the profits from streaming has gone to the studios, to be extremely clear. So let's talk about our last clip and then like move into the Q&A.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, Tanner.
Hey, Mike. What's up?
You're not coming to practice?
Oh, yeah, I just texted Coach. My mom's real sick again.
Damn.
So,
Again? I'm so sorry. Did they know what's wrong with you yet?
The doctor said it's an irritable bowel thing. And really bad, bro. She doesn't even make it to the toilet sometimes. A lot of the times, actually. Anyway, I have to help her shampoo the carpet and the couch. It's a whole thing.
Damn. Bro, that really sucks. But family first, right? You know my aunt, she had IBS.
Oh.
I could ask her.
No, it's all good, man.
No.
They got her on a new medication now. Oh, fingers crossed.
but yeah, I'll be at practice tomorrow for sure.
I'll see you.
Okay.
So that scene only made me want to know, like, tell me about the series. What's going to happen with these characters? Because that doesn't all get addressed in the film. That is my one spoiler.
Absolutely.
But there is so much that is left over for a series. And I'm like, tell me more. I want to know more. They won't tell me anything.
We
so
think
cute.
that there's a universe for these characters much further than this one short film. We hope when you watch it, you will fall in love with them and wonder how they all navigate their lives. So we are excited as creators to fill out their lives and give them substance in a way that feels authentic and endemic to our community.
And these are, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And that scene was really fun to shoot. Again, it was like one of my favorite scenes to shoot. And it's just kind of like the feeling that we wanted to, you know, evoke, and like that feel good. You're having an easy watch. There's no anxiety, really. It's just, you're just enjoying these characters for the mundane joy that they're experiencing.
Oh, the no anxiety. I haven't said it like, I haven't heard it said like that. That's
I
great.
like that.
Like, there is no anxiety when you're watching this movie. Like, the secret is not high stakes in that way. It's not meant to like raise your blood pressure. If anything, we want to stir some conversation and get a good
Probably
laugh.
because all the films that we have watched growing up involved such high stakes, such trauma, such you know,
You're gonna come out and get
it's-
thrown out of your
yeah,
house,
it's
or
just like
yeah.
the odds were stacked against you, so you had anxiety through the entire film. Even for like the side characters, they were going through it. So yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's good for catharsis, but I mean, I think we
Yeah.
both agree that sometimes filmmakers overdo that.
Yeah.
You know, one of the developmental notes that I got on the script early on was, I'm not going to name names, but I was told, well, I feel like you're doing too much for the audience. And I said, well, what the hell do you make films for? I mean, you make films so people can watch them and enjoy them. And that's what we did our best to do here.
And these films up here and shows are ones that you enjoy, that you think are doing it right?
Yeah, these are a collection of different films as well as TV shows that are handling representation of queer individuals. Not all of them are perfect, but all of them are recent that we feel that really celebrate us in a
Everyone
more
add them
fair-
to your Hulu, your HBO, your
Yes.
Netflix queues.
We'll send you links to all of these and many more, because again, we could talk about this for another hour plus, because all of these films are radically inclusive and show queer individuals in such a holistic light.
So do you want to,
Let's
let's
do-
do the
yeah, let's do
question and
local
answer. So just a
questions.
reminder for everyone on Zoom,
Oh,
make sure
yeah.
you put in.
We'll come back to this. The last,
People on Zoom.
hello people from Zoom. Add your questions to the chat.
Or if there's anyone here that wants to ask some
Yay.
questions, we have Jess that can hand a microphone to you.
I just want to know how we can see Family Affair. How can we watch it?
You can. No. Yeah, no, we hope you do. It's playing at the Provincetown Film Festival. It's having its world premiere at the Provincetown Film Festival on June 14th at 4 p.m. And if you can't make it all the way up to the Cape, it will be streaming as part of their virtual film festival starting June 19th.
Yes, we will also be at the Jersey Shore Film Festival in July for those who are in the New York City area and are able to get down to the shore a little more easily. We invite you to come out to that. That festival will also have virtual screening options, and those links will be included with our
We are
wrap
recording
email.
this. We'll send out an email to everyone on the distro after, and we'll have all the links that Kyle's talking about.
Yeah. Do we have any? What other questions do we have?
Do we have one?
We
from
have
Zoom?
one from online for the panel. So can you talk a little bit about the conversation around LGBTQ characters' roles being played by non-LGBTQ actors? How do we balance tapping
Good
into
one.
allies, but not underestimating the importance of LGBTQ folks being casted and hired to play these roles?
Well, that's a tough question. We could talk about that for an
Yeah.
hour.
I mean, you know, I have
I like that.
might be controversial viewpoints on this, but you know, as an actor myself, you know, sexuality is a fluid thing, and I do believe that actors should not be questioned about their sexuality in terms of the roles that they play. I mean, certainly we've seen an over-representation of people who identify as straight playing gay roles just because of the name value of who they are. But there have also been instances, and we're fans of Heartstopper, where one of the leads in Heartstopper was endlessly harassed online, questioning their sexuality, until this kid, and he is a kid,
He's a kid, yeah.
18
Let's
years
just
old.
be honest. He's
was forced to come out and define himself in front of the entire world, and that doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
He even said, too, you obviously didn't get the message of the show. The
Yeah.
show was all about it doesn't matter and you shouldn't. And he was like, fine, you know, here it is, I'll tell you. It was awful. It was a horrible way for
Worst
somebody
possible way to
yeah.
have to come out.
So I think like the answer to the question is that inherently there is nothing wrong with a straight person playing a queer individual. What is wrong is the over-indexing of straight individuals taking opportunities and roles from queer individuals, or not giving enough opportunities for those queer individuals to play other roles that are not necessarily just queer.
There's a whole issue with diversity in casting, too. This is because casting is where diversity can go to die, right? And yes, believe me, trust me.
It was really hard. It was hard to go through. Even if you have a great casting director, there are so many prejudices and people who are watching these tapes before we see them as producers and directors and creators.
When we think about how we had to dig in some places and how easily the people that we couldn't have lived without could have easily never been found,
Yeah.
it's terrifying. So we do need to do some work there.
And just to go back to what you just said, Kyle, I would say that yes, it is super important that these opportunities are, considered for queer actors because they need the opportunity to really, showcase themselves. They don't really get the chance to be in those rooms to even be considered. But also having queer people on set or in these roles could also help inform the script. If you are telling a story of a queer person, they might flag something that you didn't even consider as a writer or a producer or a director. And that's the beauty of having people in spaces that are, diverse and well represented and inclusive. They have a safe space to share opinions and ideas that overall make the full package really shine.
It was one of my favorite parts about making the film was working with Bear D'Angelo, the lead actor who played Tanner, to refine and massage not just the language that they said on camera, but also the the blocking of the set and how they moved in the on camera. They were explicitly saying, I don't identify as a trans individual, so I don't want to represent this character as a trans individual. That would be inaccurate and a disservice to people who identify, because the person identifies as non-binary. They were really excited to play a male-identifying person. That was an exciting role for them, and it also challenged them in ways that they weren't expecting either. That is the sort of growth opportunity that we can give to our communities by giving them a space to practice and feel it out and find their legs in the world in a safe way.
We have about 10 minutes left, so I'll take a couple more questions and then I'll turn it over to you guys to kind of close out. So one was, what was the first queer-focused movie show you remember seeing that impacted you? Looking back now, do you feel like it was an authentic inclusion? And then also, what inspired you all to get into the film industry?
Depression. That's why anybody becomes a filmmaker. Just clinical depression. But I think
I'm a masochist, so that's why I choose film. I think that film and any sort of representative media where humans are sharing an experience is a way to model the world that we want to see. And for me, I found my voice and power in the video and film medium. I've worked in advertising for over a decade and made all of these different commercials and types of video content that just didn't feel authentically queer and didn't support our community. So I said, if I can't see the change, start being the change. That's how I got into it. I'll answer the other question after Julio does.
For me, it was depression mixed with just always being behind a camera, just wanting to create stuff. And obviously, I got frustrated in not seeing myself in the things that I was consuming. So yeah, it's just I'm just gonna make the things that I want to see, and that's kind of what led me to becoming a filmmaker. Is just having the technical skill, I guess, knowing how a camera works, meeting people in spaces that know how to create beautiful images and stuff like that. And to go back, I guess I don't really remember the first film I saw that, other than Moonlight. I mean, once again, that was 2017, so it really wasn't that long ago, but yeah, I don't know.
I think that says enough.
Says a
that
lot.
says
Yeah,
a lot
it says a
there.
lot.
That it was only 5 or 6 years ago that Julio saw a film in which he felt seen. And that is embarrassing for the film industry at large, and something that we are trying to change. And we think everyone who's in this room, on the Zoom, and who watches this later has a opportunity to help be that change in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if I'm trying to remember it. Back in the early 90s, mid-early 90s, there used to be a distribution company, there may still exist, called Strands Releasing, which, pumped out a lot of gay-themed stories. And they were always kind of a little cheesy, right? They weren't
Not the best actor.
Yeah, they weren't going to win any Academy Awards, let's just put it that way. But all of them focused on, this romance that we were all, I think, craving. This idea of finding a perfect person and, having a whirlwind romance. And there's nothing wrong with those stories, but now looking back, you don't need another person to define you or your sexuality. And I think in many ways, I waited to be my full authentic self because I thought that I couldn't be until I had somebody to be with. And if to anybody out there who feels like they're waiting, don't wait. Don't wait for another person to define you.
Yeah.
So we probably only have we have a little bit more. So we have time for one more question then, do we think?
Any other questions in the room?
Was there another question, Jacob? Or from Zoom? Or from one in the room?
Anyone in the room?
While we're waiting, the first film that I saw that I felt like was opening for me as like a queer representative was just run with me. V for Vendetta from 2004. It's a very violent film about government overthrow, which is, I think, inherently queer.
Heartwarming
Queer, Pride started as a protest. So, and in that film, I feel like we navigate through a lot of complicated socio-political terrors, and we get to the heart of the story, which is this lesbian woman who is sharing her story on a piece of toilet paper with the main character. And that queer storytelling, that moment was, that movie was so gay. Because it knew that love is the center of all of us, and that even in the darkest of moments, we can share that with someone else. And then it blossomed into a very explosive and violent film, and I think that's hot.
Oh my God.
All right, we have one.
Was a riot.
I'm sorry, one final question.
We have another question?
Yep, we do. So where would you like to see queer cinema go next?
Queer cinema next is going to take over the Hollywood industry, period. The way that the industry is set up right now, it is meant to continue pushing this sort of like white supremacy, it's sort of have and have-nots, and I don't think the industry is ready to evolve to include us. So I think queer cinema is going to eventually get large enough and then take it over.
How do you feel about actors that can't come, like a Hugh Jackman or something could never come out kind of thing? Is sort of like these big, because they won't get the
Are you
roles
outing
anymore.
Hugh Jackman on
I
this?
am, secretly, yes, that's happening. But you know what I mean? Like there's been that, like you can't be a big $20 million paycheck star, right?
That's part of the reason why
That's-
the industry needs to change. It's one, forcing people to come out, and that is a inaccurate morality of the queer community. You don't have to come out. I don't think we should be forcing people to come out and suggesting they need to. The industry is obviously creating an environment in which they don't feel safe to come out, safe to be seen. If you are in an environment where you have to neglect or reject part of your identity, it is not safe. A radically inclusive environment is one where everyone feels safe to be showing themselves and showing all their sides of themselves. So, no, I don't think an actor needs to come out.
Love that answer. I know we have just a few more minutes left. Before, I mean, I could probably ask another question, but I have a real passion for this word woke that's been sort of co-opted, and Kyle used to work in advertising, so I'm really curious about, because it definitely feels like it's a thing, but even CBS Mornings had a whole thing about brands today being targeted by the woke mob, and Bud Light saw their sales plummet. You know, what do you feel about, for me, woke was just a word of being empathetic. I think you had said, Ernie.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
they've essentially rebranded basic empathy and said it's bad, and we're
Yeah.
supposed to buy that.
You know, how
Being
do you-
curious, being empathetic is not a bad thing, and we should always be challenging ourselves. And I think that in every generation, there has always been something. I mean, the welfare queen line, the crack baby line. I mean, these were all ways of reducing people, making caricatures out of people, and convincing other people that they should hate them and that their interests were somehow opposed, even though their interests were fully aligned. And that's why we talk about intersectionality.
Yeah.
Woke is being awake. It's the past tense, like I woke up. So you have your eyes open, you have consciousness about you, you're alert, you're aware. Again, basic empathy is being villainized. And I think Bud Light is it's Bud Light's fault that their sales plummeted. They handled that situation with Dylan Mulvaney deplorably. It was the worst way to handle a branded activation. They spotlit, that was tokenization. They spotlit a trans individual and then disappeared when the going went tough. That's
Target, too. I mean, this is a reminder that the rainbow logos, yeah, okay, great. But it also overstates the political power that queer people have, clearly, because there are now over 500 bills attacking us, despite everybody's rainbow logo, right?
Yeah.
So there has to be something substantive there.
Yeah.
You can't just, they're fair weather friends, and you have to stick around when the going gets tough.
So just to wrap us up with these sort of things, we can go to the last few slides. So most importantly, if there's one thing we leave you here today, is that there is transgender talent out there. They exist, they are ready to work, they need the support, they need the resources, they need the mentorship. So if you are seeing the room around you and it's a sea of sameness, if you are in a position of power or a position of privilege or safety, please use your voice to get those people in the room and supported.
And if you can't find that talent, there's something wrong with the way that you're looking, because it does exist.
But we like actionable things that we can do today. So how do you represent without tokenizing? Again, it's using your voice. If you see the sea of sameness, say something. But again, do not compromise your position if you are not in a position of privilege or if you feel unsafe. Your safety is not more important in this situation. We are speaking specifically to those who have safety in this world.
You know, in my line of work, one of the questions that we ask C-suite level people is, do you think that a good leader should be the first person to talk in a meeting or the last person to talk in a meeting? And they usually take a long time with that question. But the truth is if you want inclusion and you want a diversity of ideas, you should be the last person to talk, right? Because when you are the first person to talk, you're setting the stage, you're funneling, you know, you're narrowing the vision of what is possible. So that's what I think we mean by not tokenizing. You really want people to be at the table. Don't just have them there for a group photo. Have them there so they can say something.
And then listen and do something with it. We all know what it's like to hear mouth talk from people and there's no change, behavior change. So accountability is both. Celebrating our community. Yeah. How do we do that? We do it by recognizing our own individuality and our own differences and then expanding that to everyone else in our community. You have myriad ways that you intersect in this world and your identities cross over. Examine those and share some compassion with the other folks in our community.
Celebrating queer joy is another one, right?
Yeah.
This is a shout out to Baja about 3 things. 3 things, Baja.
And the last thing is how to make a difference today. Again, for the folks who have safety and privilege right now, silence is violence. If you are keeping your mouth shut in rooms where people are actively talking about individuals who are not in the room, then something needs to change. We need to speak up.
There aren't 2 sides to this issue. We talk about left and right as if there's some type of balance, but it's the difference between going forward or going backwards. The people's existence shouldn't be up for debate.
Finding our shared interests. And then lastly, and the easiest thing to do is support the queer films and queer and TV. You know, give it the views on streaming. Don't stop doing it. Netflix is a terrible offender of queer cinema. They cancel shows and films very regularly that feature queer cast. Give them the views. Don't boycott them. And then go to the film festivals.
Go to film festivals. There's Kickstarters online. You could support.
There's organizations that are supporting arts. There are organizations that are supporting the livelihoods of queer and trans individuals. Ochre Project is the first one that comes to mind that is doing excellent work for sustenance and resources for the trans community. Again, we will follow up with a whole bunch of links
so there's going to be some links we're going to share out. We can all celebrate Family Affair, so everyone's going to go watch that after this.
Yeah.
I want to thank Ernie, Kyle, Julio so much for coming today and speaking with us. Just a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you to the Gap Company, to Pride at Gap for having us here. It was an honor to speak to y'all. We hope you have a joyous Pride Month.
And go to gapfactory.com, get your Pride tee that was designed with the team with Pride at Gap Inc. feedback. We've just celebrated that on LinkedIn this week. So yeah, go get your tea today. Just thank everyone for coming. Thank you for all on Zoom for attending. In SF and in New York, you should have some sections set up either in your cafe or I'll find out about Too Folsom. But with Cards of Pride, there's going to be some more communication around that too. But that, please, for all those in 55T, take a moment, write a card. This is just a card of support for LGBTQ youth here in New York. So it's a really amazing, simple way to just give back during this Pride Month. And
Matters. Support
exactly.
matters. It really does.
Allyship.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming. This was awesome. I really appreciate the conversation, and we'll keep the conversation going. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Wave to Zoom.